Hello, we have the full crew today. We have Mike, Ken, Eric, Marcel hiding in the back, and we have a new face. We have Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard.
What did you bring?
I brought original Lunar Module FDAI.
The Flight Director Attitude Indicator.
Greeting Earthlings! If you follow the channel, you know that we have been restoring quite a bit of Apollo hardware. The Apollo guidance computer and the entire communications system have been our largest project so far. But we are always ecstatic when we can get our greasy hands on the hot control panel instruments, be it simple indicators like LEM lights or a command module barber pole indicator. And we go nuts when we can restore iconic ones like the disk key. Today, thanks to collector Richard, we get to look at another iconic instrument that we had long been looking for, the FDAI. FDAI stands for Flight Director Attitude Indicator, also sometimes known as the 8-ball indicator because of its resemblance with the black billiard ball. There were 2 FDAIs in the command module and 2 others in the LEM. They are the spaceship's equivalent of the artificial horizon in a plane. But unlike the plane ones, which are two-dimensional, the space ones assume that you can point in any direction while flying, and therefore are three-dimensional, indicating roll, pitch and yaw with full 360 degrees of rotation. Therefore, the FDAI display consists of a ball that miraculously rotates around all 3 axes. The spacecraft attitude it indicates is derived from the inertial platform. It is one of the most important flight instruments. As was usual in the Apollo program, there were 2 different manufacturers for these, and they produced instruments that were almost identical in functionality and appearance, yet were quite different and incompatible in many ways. The CM ones were made by Honeywell and can be recognized by their roundish bezel. The LEM ones, like the one we have here, were made by Lear-Siegler and have an hexagonal bezel. The Lear-Siegler FDAIs are related to another indicator that the firm had produced, the ARU-11, which was installed in the F-4 Phantom fighter plane. We had restored a very broken ARU-11 indicator in a previous series. Hopefully, what we learn will apply to the Apollo unit. However, there is some unwelcome similarity between our ARU-11 and this Apollo unit. They are both very broken, and previously used as parts unit. Our ARU-11 was so terminally broken that it's a miracle that we were able to repair it. Hopefully, our Apollo FDAI won't be as bad. Or will it?
So it has a ball inside that spins to show you your current attitude relative to the stars, essentially. And there's also a series of needles that show you your rotational rates and also the attitude error, which is how far away from where you want to be pointing you're currently pointing.
2 in the command module, 2 in the LEM.
Yes.
And the one in the LEM, we have some familiarity with it because it's made by
Lear-Siegler, yeah.
And then that's the ARU-11 that we had done before, so you can see the family heritage here.
Yep.
Lear-Siegler, and it's an indicator attitude FDIR LM for Lunar Module.
Okay.
And I think the acquisition price at that time was $15,000.
I think that was really produced for the Lunar Module simulator, and then later on it got repurposed for the Shuttle simulator.
So this one originally was an Apollo thing and it got reused in the Shuttle
That's
program.
correct.
If you compare actually the face with the ones that were used in the LEM, they actually had the different axes annotated, and now for the space shuttle they actually painted it over. They also added an airplane symbol that we'll see probably better later.
Yeah, can you if you can move it a little up,
That's right
angle
here.
it, yeah.
This one here is the airplane symbol. Then there's also no gimbal lock kind of red circle anymore.
So our FDAI had quite a storied life. It started service in a LEM simulator, a full LEM trainer on Earth in which the astronauts practiced. After the Apollo program, it was reused in a space shuttle simulator instead. That conversion involved obscuring the LEM legends on the needles. The roll, pitch and yaw rate legends were removed, as well as the reddened areas on the dial sides. Here is the before picture and here is the after picture. If you squint, you can even see the blotches of black paint that were used to obscure the former LEM markings. The ball was also repainted. In the Apollo system, there was an area at the top of the ball painted bright red. That was the dreaded gimbal lock area, an attitude where the inertial platform would lock up and lose its reference, and that had to be avoided. It proved to be a royal pain in the Apollo flights, so the shuttle gimbal lock was eliminated from the shuttle IMU by adding a fourth gimbal. Therefore, the red area could be eliminated. Our unit has one more major change from a normal LEM unit. It is equipped with traditional synchros instead of resolvers. We explained how the synchro-based servo control works in the previous ARU11 episodes. The Apollo program used resolvers instead of synchros, which have 2 windings instead of 3. But for us, synchro servo control is a blessing in disguise, as it makes the servo electronics identical to the ARU11, which we already reverse engineered. Finally, towards the end of its life, something dreadful must have happened to Richard's FDAI, and it became a parts unit before being decommissioned. Richard already told us that it was missing stuff inside. You open it up already and there is a slight problem with it.
Yeah, so when I opened it, I noticed that there was a missing board. I found out in the meantime it's the servo amplifier board. And when I saw the other episodes 1 and 2, I realized, yeah, I mean, they are actually related to the ARU11. It's the same manufacturer. This is the Leo Siegel one. And so I brought those because we might be able to use the boards here to make this, to fix this and make this whole.
Right, and you showed us that you had done the research and found the exact name on the board, and you went specifically after an ARU11.
That's right.
That had the very same board, and on the ARU11, as we showed in our previous videos, the boards are inside here.
That's correct.
Whereas on the FDAI,
they're actually inside. They're not an add-on module in the back. Right. They're actually inside. I guess the board got taken out to fix another one, right? It got cannibalized. This was the sacrificial unit, right? Yeah. But this is the tape that came along with it. Here we go. You can see the first. You can see the first.
Yeah.
Yes, here already and here. One thing that's interesting is, I mean, all those trim. Again, those are trim points, and they're actually they're just moving out these mechanisms.
So it's just the tail on that thing mechanically adjusts the zero, right, of the galvanometer.
What do we have here? So we have 1, 2, 3. I think the fourth one is missing, so there's 3. I tried to kind of turn it around like this, and then it's easier like this. And now you can just hold it like this, and now I can work that way. I can actually see it.
Yeah, you can probably hang from the side.
So let's put that down, and I mean, let's see whether I can just scoot it out slowly. I'm wondering what's the best way to do it now.
Ken, maybe you can hold the main. There you go. It's a 3-person extraction.
Okay.
All right.
And then we have the screws. I'll just put them on the side. Oh, this one. What happened to the screws? Whatever happened to the screws? They're gone.
No, they're not there. So I see them. They're right there.
There are 3.
One.
One. Oh, I see.
2. And then you can we have a special receptacle for that.
They're all the same. I guess they're all the same. 1,
And
2.
then you should have another one. I don't know where what.
Maybe in the mechanism now somewhere.
So in case you didn't realize it already, this unit is an absolute nightmare to service. It has fragile stuff on all sides. There is no place where you can hold it without bumping one of the many needles. Mike told us that the Apollo units were built by hand in the engineering department, as production refused to be distracted by the small volume and money-losing production of the space units.
Is that top needle bent?
A little bit. Actually, one of the needles, not this one. I think the answer
I
is
think it's on purpose.
Yes.
It's
It's
to
hand
adjust the length.
Here we have one of the missing servo amplifier boards. There are three of them. I think this one here is the pitch. I think the roll one here is missing, and then there's one on this side. There's one on this side here. That's the third one. I think that's the yaw one.
Okay.
Then you have the two. You have, for each of the three axes, you have 2 pointers. One is the rate at which you rotate. You have hit this one here, and then one you have an error signal, which is the difference between what you would like it to be and what it actually is right now.
We can poke them a little bit. Yeah, they are galvanometers. Variable air shunt 330 ohms. The input impedance of the needle, I think. So Ken, you were saying that you
So there are these
pots.
6 trim pots, and if you look, they're covered by a little black metal piece, so you can't fiddle with them.
Huh.
And then here, interestingly enough, you have the date. It says April 22nd, 1968. So
Alright.
this was clearly produced in the Apollo era.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we have the ball. I mean,
And give it a little tug, see if it moves.
this is the roll here. I think there's a pitch. And then there would be a third one, like in the other one for the ARU, where you have the ball itself, the hemisphere can turn.
You can.
Does it work actually?
Yeah. There you go.
But did you manage to get the balls, the two?
Yeah,
rotate?
it rotates.
Okay.
It's doing fine.
And then if you look in the front, it got, we need a flashlight. So the faceplate was clearly done for Apollo, and if you compare the two faceplates, the Apollo ones had actually the labeled the different axes. This one may be an easy one. It's called this roll rate here.
Well, stay there for a second. I think I can see the something W roll yaw.
This is
yaw.
yaw. And
Yaw
this one-
rate.
Yeah, this is yaw.
Yaw rate has been painted over,
This
and
is
then
pitch, and this is roll. You can
and
see
then
the
if you do pitch, yeah, I can see. Move it a little higher, closer, right there. I can see pitch rate, and then on this one, you can see roll rate. Yeah, I can see it very well.
And then there's the addition of the aircraft symbol.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's actually 2 zones that are red that were painted over. It's hard to see, but if you show the John's website,
And the ball was repainted or just changed?
It was repainted. They got rid of the gimbal lock red zone.
And
so this is John Ponghire's website, space1.com.
so he has on the left is the original LEM.
Right.
On the right is how it is in the shuttle.
Yep.
Okay, you see the apparition of the little plane symbol. Oh, that's where it was written, roll rate, pitch rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see it. And then the little red sections have been repainted. Alright, and then there were a few loose wires that we saw.
Yes.
Yeah, just
Around.
around.
This way. Okay, so we have these, of course, for the board.
Yeah, the board is
And then we
missing.
had a couple more here. There was also one that's cut somewhere on the other side.
There's the one for
There's
illumination
one for
on
illumination
the right side.
here.
There's one kind of sticking into the slip ring assembly in there, which is
Oh yeah, I see it, the white one.
right in here, like poking into the slip ring assembly. There's a loose wire. And there.
Oh yeah, I can't see it.
Can you think you can pluck it out, or should we wait? See.
I could.
Oh, that's another one of this amplifier board wires. I see a connector at the end of it. But I was looking at others that were three. Yeah,
There's one here, yes.
there's this one over there, and there's these
Yeah.
ones. Okay, well, we'll have some interesting reverse engineering to do.
The following day.
And yesterday, while I wasn't looking, everybody else made some progress on the FDAI. What did you guys do?
So yesterday we, in addition to those loose cables that belong to the missing amplifier board, there were a whole bunch of additional loose cables that we found, together with Eric and Mike, we found a way to attribute to power actually the different meters.
And the wires were disconnected, so to these two?
We just had to insert them into their sockets, so that was actually pretty quick.
Right, well, and then you did that looking at pictures from another collector that had it connected.
We had pictures of two other units. We looked at the color coding for the 7 leads that go into each of the amplifier board. I think for the yaw and for the pitch, we show how all those colors match. For roll, we just don't see them all on the pictures, but we have a few that match as well. The other ones we'll have to figure out.
Can you also looked at the amplifier and found some subtle differences between the one we had done before?
Yeah, it looks like they changed the revision slightly and rotated the transistors and moved a few traces around, but as far as I can tell, they should be basically the same.
So it's slight revisions.
From this one versus the one that you guys looked at?
Yeah, ours was labeled Rev C.
Yeah, so also while I was not looking, you guys opened up the ARU11 that you had bought for spares. It looks much better than the one we had repaired, but I still see the tail lumps I'm a little bit afraid of. And though it's hard to tell if they are good or bad because they test good on the tester and then they don't quite work. Do we want to test the amplifiers outside, or we just sand it?
Actually, the one reason maybe not to do it in circuit here is what we also found out. Be careful this. So there's this assembly down here.
Be careful every time you.
I know.
Hit that.
It's very. So this assembly here, which we're not quite sure what it does yet. But we also looked at it. The base plate that supports this, it seems almost like it shorts all the leads here.
It does look like it, so maybe it's not
a good idea to test it.
Okay, Mike educated us on these indicators, and in the LAM, they don't take DC, they take AC, and there's a demodulator circuit, which we don't know where it would be.
Yeah, I'm interested in looking at this.
Right, so it would be... If it's there, it would be there, but it's also been transformed for
Shuttle, right?
Shuttle, so it might not be there at all, which might make
there's this mysterious data tech module.
So we have a mystery board at the bottom and a mystery data tech module.
Yeah, the board, and that's the one.
And Richard has removed the mystery board, and right away we can see we have 2 missing wires, but we can tell where they are going, right? But this guy and this guy, they're not going anywhere, but then there's this here and that there, which are empty. So my guess is that that's where they go. And this thing wasn't tight either. One of the screw was loose, the board is not fully tied up, so something has happened.
Hopefully this isn't another one of those parts boxes.
Of course, this is what we specialize in.
You mean like cannibalized?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it is cannibalized. I mean, the very fact that one of the boards
right, and the reason it might be is cannibalized might be that some other part is defective, right? And then they start taking it as a parts unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't have any difficulty to put it back together. The wait that we take the ball out, this is going to be much more interesting.
Do we need to take the ball out?
We might.
So then maybe
It's my secret hope that we'll have to take it entirely apart.
Oh, okay, my secret hope is the opposite. That is not necessary.
Several days later.
Well, Richard, guess what? Oh well, see you in the next episode.